This happened when I was a father of a 7-year-old boy, and my life was still pretty normal at the time. I was a 30-year-old man back then, working in a job that demanded a lot of energy, especially with a family to care for. On Halloween night 2023, I came home exhausted after a long day of work. It was the usual routine, kids running around in costumes, getting candy, and all the excitement of the season. I was so drained that I barely wanted to interact with anyone. But then, as I walked through the door, my son Daniel reminded me of our nightly ritual. We always had this tradition where I'd go and say goodnight to him, making sure to tuck him in and check under the bed. It was our thing, something that helped him sleep through the night without any issues. The second I opened his door, I immediately knew something was off. The room was dimly lit, just like it always was. But his silhouette under the blanket seemed ... I could barely make him out at first, but as my eyes adjusted, I noticed he was lying perfectly still, a grin spread wide across his face. I couldn't tell whether it was excitement or something else, but it felt wrong. The grin was almost too wide, stretching across his little face, something I'd never seen before. "You okay, buddy?" I asked, my voice coming out softer than I intended. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, his grin seemed to widen even more. After a long, awkward pause, he finally nodded, his face still locked in that unsettling grin. "Daddy ... check for monsters under my bed." I couldn't help but chuckle a little, trying to ease the tension. "You're too old for that kind of thing," I said, half joking. But I didn't want to dismiss his feelings. After all, I didn't want him to feel afraid. So, I crouched down to check under the bed. As I leaned forward trying to peek underneath, I froze. There, curled up under the bed, was ... Daniel, the real Daniel. He looked pale, his eyes wide with terror, his body shaking. He whispered in a voice barely above a breath, "Daddy, there's someone on my bed." My blood ran cold, my heart pounded in my chest, and my hands shook as I slowly pulled my head back from under the bed. I turned to look at the figure on the bed, my son's smiling face still there, staring at me, unmoving. I quickly ran to the light switch and flicked it on, illuminating the room in a cold, bright light. There, lying in the middle of the bed, was my son, but something was wrong. His grin, no, it wasn't his grin. It was a grin that was too wide, too unnatural, and it was spreading across the entire face, almost like the mask of a clown. A deep, unsettling laugh escaped his lips, but it wasn't a laugh I recognized. It felt ... hollow. I looked over at the real Daniel, his terrified eyes meeting mine. "Who is that?" I whispered, my voice trembling with fear. But the boy on the bed didn't answer. Instead, the figure's grin widened even more, stretching unnaturally across its face. Without thinking, I grabbed Daniel from under the bed and held him close to me, my mind racing. "Stay quiet," I whispered to him. "Don't look back." The figure on the bed didn't move, but I could still feel its eyes on me, burning into the back of my skull. I backed out of the room slowly, keeping my eyes fixed on the figure. And just as I reached the door, the figure whispered, almost like a hiss, "Daddy, why are you so scared? There's no monster under your bed." It was like the voice was mocking me, almost as if it knew my every fear. I slammed the door shut behind me, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. But I didn't breathe a sigh of relief just yet. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. I didn't know what I had just encountered, but whatever it was evil. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the couch with Daniel, staring at the door to his room. I don't know why, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was still in there, watching us. I tried to convince myself it was all just a bad dream, that maybe I'd been overtired or had imagined it, but I couldn't. The next few weeks, things got worse. Strange noises came from Daniel's room at night, scratching sounds, whispers, even the sound of footsteps walking around. And every time I'd go to check, Daniel would be asleep, but there was always that grin, that same awful grin. Eventually, I started to stay up late, keeping watch by his door. I couldn't let my guard down, but one night, when I went to check on him again, I saw something that still haunts me to this day. There, standing at the foot of his bed, was a figure tall and slender, its face obscured by shadows. And as I stepped closer, I heard the faint whisper, "It's time for you to join us." I don't know what happened that night, but I do know this. The thing that grinned at me wasn't my son. It wasn't human, and it's still out there waiting. This happened to me on a quiet winter night. I was 16 years old, sitting in my bedroom, which had just recently been renovated. It was the middle of winter in 2022, and the house was as cold as usual. The old storm windows were a constant issue, letting cold air seep through and making it impossible to keep the house warm. But finally, after weeks of complaining, my parents had gotten the windows replaced. The room was warm now, and it felt like a new place. I remember that night clearly. I was sitting on my bed, scrolling through the depths of the internet on my laptop. It was around 2 a.m, and everyone else in the house was asleep. The only sounds were the soft hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the house settling. Despite the late hour, I didn't feel tired. I was content, clicking away, lost in whatever I was doing. The house was quiet to quiet. It wasn't until I heard it that I even realized how silent it had been. At first it was just a soft thumping. I didn't think much of it. The wind can make strange sounds sometimes, I thought, but then it came again. A rhythmic thumping, almost as if someone was tapping lightly on my window. Thump, thump, thump. It lasted about 15 seconds, and then it stopped. A cold chill ran down my spine. I tried to dismiss it, assuming it was something normal, maybe just the wind, but then I froze. The sound had been too deliberate. For a moment, I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the window. Thump, thump. This time, I felt a knot in my stomach. Maybe it was an animal, I thought. A bird pecking at the glass, but something didn't sit right. I'd lived in this house for years, and I had never heard anything like that. I couldn't stop myself from looking toward the window. The window was only a few feet from my bed. The blinds were half open, moonlight poured in, making the room feel both too bright and too dark. I stood up slowly, my feet cold against the hardwood floor. I walked cautiously toward the window, my heartbeat hammering in my chest. I gently pushed the blinds aside. The tapping stopped, but when I looked out there was nothing, just the empty yard, the faint outline of trees in the distance, the wind rustling the leaves. No one was there. I sighed in relief and shook my head. It was probably just an animal or the wind, I told myself. But something still felt off. I went back to my bed, trying to forget the strange noise. For a few minutes I heard nothing but the soft click of my keys. Then, out of nowhere, the tapping started again. Louder this time, stronger. Thump. I jumped up, my breath catching in my throat. I walked slowly to the window again, more cautiously this time. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I didn't expect what I saw. There was a figure standing outside, barely visible in the dark, on the edge of the yard. It was hard to make out the details, but the figure was tall, hunched over, strangely still. My heart was racing. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I couldn't believe my eyes. The tapping continued. Thump, thump. I stood frozen. My mind raced. Who was that? Why were they standing there? Why weren't they moving? The figure didn't seem to notice me, but I felt like they knew I was there. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but all I could do was stand there and stare. Finally, I forced myself to step back from the window. I rushed out of the room and ran to find my parents, but when I told them what I saw, they didn't believe me. They said it was probably just someone walking in the neighborhood, but I knew what I saw. The next day I checked the window again. I tapped on it lightly with my hand, trying to replicate the noise. I tapped, then tapped harder. I tried every combination I could think of, but nothing sounded the same. I didn't want to seem paranoid, so I let it go. I hoped it was a one-time thing. But later that night, my dad opened the window to let in some fresh air, and the moment he pulled up on the handle, the same noise echoed through the room. Thump, thump, thump. I froze. My stomach dropped. There was no way this was happening again. My dad didn't understand my panic. He shrugged it off as coincidence, but I knew something wasn't right. The tapping stopped when the window opened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still out there, watching me, and that wasn't the end of it. I started hearing the noise more often. Each time it was louder. Each time I checked, there was nothing there. I don't know who or what was making the noise, but I couldn't escape the thought that maybe, just maybe, something was trying to get in. The window was never the same after that. Every time I passed it, I'd glance out, half expecting to see something or someone standing in the dark, waiting. I never looked at it the same way again. This happened to my best friend, and she still refuses to talk about it in detail. To this day, she insists that it was all just a series of coincidences, but I know better. She's one of the most rational people I know, but even she couldn't deny what happened after it all ended. We were both in our late teens when this started. It all began one night, a few months ago, when she first confided in me about something strange that had been happening to her. We had just finished school for the day, and we were sitting in her room, as we often did, chatting about life. That's when she told me about the whispers. At first, she seemed hesitant to talk about it, like it was something that made her uncomfortable. But after a few minutes of silence, she began to explain. It started out small, she said, her voice shaky. Just whispers. At night, when I'm trying to fall asleep. At first I thought it was just the wind or my imagination, but then it started to happen every night. I listened carefully, unsure of what she meant. She went on to explain that these whispers came from the corner of her room, where the shadows seemed to stretch out into the dark. At first it wasn't even words, just soft, unintelligible murmurs. But then, the whispers began to change. They started repeating something. Every night the same whisper, a number. At first it was a simple 10. The next night it was 9, then 8. I don't know what it means, she said, her voice trembling. But the number keeps going down, one by one. Last night it was 6. Tonight it'll probably be 5. I don't know why it's happening, but I feel like something's coming. I tried to reassure her. Maybe it's just your mind playing tricks on you. You're stressed, right? It's probably nothing. But she didn't seem convinced. She looked at me with wide eyes. You don't get it, it's so clear. The whispers, they feel ... intentional, and each night it gets worse. The numbers are getting smaller, and I don't know what comes next. I could see how scared she was. She wasn't the type of person to jump to conclusions, and whatever it was, I could tell it was affecting her deeply. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. A week passed. I didn't hear from her much, but when I did, she was acting even stranger. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. The whispers were taking a toll on her and I could see it. Then, on a Tuesday, I saw her again. We were sitting in the cafeteria when she leaned over and whispered, "Tonight, it'll be number 7. It was almost like she was resigned to it. Like she already knew. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, trying to hide the unease that was creeping up my spine. The next day, Wednesday, I called her to check in. She didn't answer. I figured she was just busy, but something in my gut told me I should have been more worried. When I got home later that night, I got the call. Her voice was shaky, like she was about to break down. "I didn't sleep last night. It was number 0. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. "What do you mean, number 0? She didn't answer at first. There was silence on the other end of the line. And then she said, her voice barely audible, I think it was the last one. The whispers were gone, but I don't know how to explain it. I feel like something's waiting for me." Her words sent chills down my spine. I didn't know what to say, but I couldn't ignore the fear in her voice. I told her to stay put, that I'd be over soon. I drove to her house as fast as I could. When I got there, I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. I let myself in, the door creaking open. Her parents weren't home, so it was just her. I called her name, but there was no response. I walked through the house, searching every room, but still nothing. The last place I looked was her bedroom, and when I opened the door, the sight that met me nearly made me freeze in place. There, lying in the center of the room, was my best friend. She was completely still, her eyes wide open but glazed over, staring at nothing. Her lips were slightly parted, and her face had an expression of terror that I can't even begin to describe. It was like she wasn't even there anymore. I rushed to her side, shaking her gently. Hey, wake up." But she didn't move. Her body was limp, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. And then, as I sat beside her, trying to wake her up, I heard it, a whisper. Soft, but so distinct that I couldn't mistake it. 0. I felt my heart stop. It was like a voice inside the room, just behind me, breathing that word directly into my ear. I turned around, but there was nothing there. Nothing but shadows. I grabbed her and shook her harder, yelling her name, until finally, she blinked and gasped for air. What happened?" She whispered, her voice hoarse. "Are you okay? You scared me," I said, still trying to process what had just happened. She looked at me, confused, her eyes wide. I think I saw something, a figure. It was in the corner watching me, and it was counting down. The last thing I heard was 0. Then ... Then I woke up, but I wasn't in my body. It was like I was trapped somewhere else. I didn't know what to say. The fear in her eyes was real. But there was something else too, something I couldn't shake. It felt like something had passed through her, something otherworldly. The whispers stopped that night, but I'll never forget that moment. The way she looked at me, terrified, as if she knew something I didn't. And what chills me to the bone is this. She never heard the whispers again. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I hear them. Faint whispers, counting down in the darkness. And when I listen closely, I swear I hear the number ... 0. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Share your own creepy experiences with us in the comments below, who knows? Maybe your story will be featured in our next video. And remember, always stay aware of your surroundings. You never know who or what might be watching. Stay safe and sleep tight if you can.